Good morning. This is Betty Shan again, and we're glad that you've joined us. I hope you're having a blessed day today. And I got a little note from a Susie or Susan. I hate it when I start calling names because I get them always mixed up. But anyway, I got a note from her, and her last name was Dixon, I believe. And she was telling how she had been canning tomatoes, and that does something to somebody that's ever canned. You get to thinking, oh, I just want a can. As a matter of fact, I went outside to see if I had my jars out in the storage room where I could can some stuff. But what I wanted to can was some black eyed peas. But I didn't want them old dried black eyed peas. I want some fresh black eyed peas to can. But anyway, I looked for my jars and couldn't find my jars. So I don't know, this girl's canning days may be over. Jars are getting so costly. But anyway, we don't get to go out in our gardens and pick vegetables and things here. Things get so hot and so dry. You have to stay with it all the time. And I'm not one to want to stay with watering outside every night or tending to my vegetables. But at one time my daddy did. He worked at the mines, and every year he'd plant him a small little garden. But it was plenty enough for Mother and Daddy, and he liked to give some of his vegetables to the neighbors, and he just enjoyed the part of the farming life. Was raised with farming parents, and that's what he liked. He liked to farm. So when he retired, he had nothing to do. He seemed so bored. He'd water the yard and tend to his pecan trees, but he wanted more than that. So he went and bought him a piece of land. And on this land, he plowed it up. And as a matter of fact, it had a well on it. He had water there. I mean, everything was just set up for him to farm. So he plowed up this farmland, and he planted him a garden. I guess he thought that when you raised a garden, you could just give away all these vegetables and use what you wanted and give the rest away, and there wasn't no problems. But he raised too big a garden for that. And when the produce started coming off, well, my little mother, she always had rheumatoid arthritis, and so she wasn't able to can and do the things he wanted her to do with all these vegetables he raised. So I went into the canning business. And I'm going to tell you, I remember being up at night. Daddy went and harvested his corn one evening. And he told me, he said, you can't just let this corn set. He said, you're going to have to get it in jars. He said, you don't want it to set. Well, I don't know much about what you let set and what you don't let set, but I knew I had a mess there because I had bushel after bushel of corn that I was going to have to do something with. So I started in on it, and I stayed up all night long, and it was way up in the middle of the next day before I got all that corn put up. And of course, I took it off the cob and canned it. And but anyway, when you get this stuff canned, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful on your shelves. And there was tomatoes and black-eyed peas and purple hull peas, Crowder peas. I mean, Daddy raised a garden. And I'm telling you, he liked to work me to death that summer. And so the next summer, when it come time to raise it, he just decided that he'd do about half of what he'd done before. And it just liked to work me to death because Mother wasn't able to can it, and here all this produce was. He'd give it to neighbors. Matter of fact, we got to teasing him. People seen him coming, they run and hid because they didn't want none of his vegetables because he had too many of them. But anyway, I enjoyed canning, and I sure loved to put these cans of jars of things on my shelves and look at them and see what I had accomplished. I love canning. And but where we live, if you raise it, you've got to be sure you've got plenty of water, and I'm telling you, if you have to pay a city water bill, you really pay for your crop. And I told Mother, after Daddy went ahead and he sold that property, he didn't have it but about 3 years, and he went ahead and sold it because he knew that we couldn't keep up with all the canning and everything that was going on. I still had my girls at home, and it would just got to be such a big job that he went ahead and got rid of it. And I told Mama, I said, if he'd just plant a small garden, just enough for y'all to eat, I said, that'd be fine in his yard. But I said, this big garden, like he's wanting to, he's not just wanting to have a garden, he's wanting to be a farmer. But anyway, Daddy was so sweet, and he was so kind-hearted. He'd raise his stuff, and then he couldn't hardly give it away. But he had watermelons and cantaloupes. I mean, he raised a big garden. And I did enjoy the canning, and I'd go out and I'd hunt for fruit and different things to can, because to me, looking at it on the shelves was just a wonderful thing, that the labor that we put into our vegetables and stuff. And then Daddy oftentimes would go out and hunt up a calf, and he'd have it butchered. We'd have fresh meat. It was just like we lived on a farm, but we didn't live in a farm. We lived in the city. And so I kind of let him know, you know, I can't keep up with all this stuff for you. And I gathered up jars. People give me jars and different ones to say, here, Betty, I'll give you these because I'm never going to use them again. And I'd can up, I'd make pepper sauce, I made mayonnaise, I done everything I knew to do, or it was a salad dressing's what I made. And today, if I had to do all of that again, I'd have to get my books out and hunt it all up, because over the time I forgot how to do a lot of it. But when I done it, I really enjoyed it. And I thought back about my grandma Burkham would always stick her stuff in a big closet. She had a big closet, and when she'd can, she'd stick all that stuff in the closet. And of course, she had the 9 kids when she was raising garden stuff and canning it like that. And as she got older, she just canned a quart or 2 of tomatoes today and a quart or 2 of green beans tomorrow. And she just had a little bit to can, but she kept canning all of her life. She canned, and she enjoyed putting up stuff, and she always had a garden. And when you'd go over there, you could always go to that garden and pick you something to eat or get something out of her garden. And then Grandma Bryant, I remember her canning, and they had a cellar. And she had shelves built in that cellar where she could put all of her canned goods up there. And I remember many a time being there, and I'd hear her holler, Ethel, go get some corn out of the cellar, or go get some green beans, or, you know, she always canned, and she always had food there because she did can it and she put it up. And if they hadn't, there'd have been times that it'd been very hard for them, which it was hard anyway, but it would really be hard if she hadn't preserved her food. So today, if you get a chance and an opportunity, you young girls, you can some and put some stuff up and look at it. It's beautiful. It kind of gets a hold of you. It gets to where you want to do them things because you see how much it helps the family, and the food is so much better than going in the store and buying a can of something. But as years has gone by, I tell my kids once in a while they'll put something on sale. They used to have a sale right before summer come again, and they'd sell out a lot of their canned goods. And I tell the kids, well, I'd go down and buy 6 or 8 cans or something, and I'd say, well, I'm doing my canning. I'm putting my food up. And anyway, it just becomes a habit, and it's a joyful thing that you can feed your family, and the food's good, and it's beautiful sitting on your shelves. You have a blessed day. Keep your chin up and live for the Lord.